Hello, my name is Sam Connington. I'm currently a sophomore here at Bethel. I did some PSEO here too as well, and just really enjoyed my time here. Currently a history and political science major, but I will be changing to a for sure a history major and a social studies ed major, and possibly if I could fit in there political science, but I might just make that a minor too. It's kind of up in the air right now, but it's not really that important. Yeah, so there's some things about me. I am really into soccer. I am a soccer referee for my job. I travel across the country doing like high quality, high level youth games. I do D3, D2 college officiating for soccer across the state and in Wisconsin and parts of North Dakota and stuff like that. Um, just something I'm really passionate about. Obviously, I mean, history is something I'm just as much passionate about too, and that's one of the things that kind of drew me to wanting to study uh, becoming a teacher is because um, I've had the opportunity to have a lot of really good history teachers and some not so good history teachers, and the combination of those experiences has really led me to want to kind of put what I've learned into work and kind of really try to teach students in a way that I think is really beneficial for society. I really enjoyed taking Introduction to History, and as well as Introduction to Education, specifically this semester. Um, Kind of just to go over some things that like I covered. Uh, I want to be a teacher, kind of because of the reasons I just gave, and also because I feel like there's a certain philosophy that I kind of adhere to when it comes to teaching, and it's the idea that you shouldn't necessarily I mean, not necessarily. You shouldn't, period, be just trying to create a type of individual, but you should be enabling people in the hopes that, perhaps they'll think a certain way. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is just to work to equip students with the ability to think about things in certain ways. So I think that's like really relevant for politics and history specifically and humanities profession because what I've seen is it's a lot of times you're trying to get students to think a certain way specifically versus what I think is really good is you give them all the facts, you teach them how to think critically, and you enable them to, develop for themselves and become an individual in how they learn. And I kind of wrote about that in my autobiography that I did for this, which I really enjoyed doing because it helped me kind of develop a sense of what is my how do I view like the role of education and what a teacher should be doing. And I've gotten really passionate about like how teachers should really just be going about equipping students, not necessarily giving them a certain narrative, but enabling them to think for themselves, to be independent thinkers, and just to be individuals. To strengthen the individual is kind of what I wrote a lot about in my paper. And that's something I'm passionate about because I think that should be really the role of education. It shouldn't be creating a certain individual. It should be working really hard to really just empower them as individuals to individually come up with their own views, their own narratives, their own structures of thought, and that kind of always goes to math. You want them to be independent in math and life skills. You want them to be independent. You don't want to make them reliant on a certain way of thinking about things, and I think that's really a healthy way of doing it. Um, Also, I love history, and as through refing, I just really enjoy working with youth. Um, Obviously, it's kind of weird to say because I'm a sophomore, so I was like a youth like a couple years ago. But yeah, just that's something I've gotten really passionate about is focusing on that way of education. And these are like important issues, like history. Everything you learn about in history is it might not seem applicable to you in your everyday life, but if what happens in the past directly influences the issues you're dealing with today in the present, why things they are the way they are, and why people think the way they think, and having an ability to be objective about that and really empowering people to look at that and analyze it for themselves, I think is really great, and that's something I've been lucky enough to be empowered to do, and I want to do that for other people. Um, kind of just to kind of go on the examples, like obviously the autobiography was, I love writing, so that was just something really great to get a chance just to write about stuff I'm really interested and passionate about. But also, I really liked doing the other content modules, which are things like focusing on, you know, the content toolkit, where I got to kind of put together sort of like this lesson plan idea, and then try to use the standards. And I got to work with um, just how teachers go about making a lesson, which I still am it's still like something really hard, but that's what I'm going to learn about as I go on in the program. But it's just like I really like that because it opened my mind that like it's not easy to put together a lesson plan at all, and it made me really respect my teachers in high school and elementary school because it's hard. Um, Another thing I really liked is the teacher interview because I got to connect with a social studies teacher I had in high school. It was my favorite teacher, and just reconnect with him, which was really cool. And he gave me a ton of really good advice about how, at the present, like how teaching is developing right now, is that we have to do a lot of like social work things, and you have to be understanding of how students process things emotionally and be sensitive to it, and how do you work with students with developmental disabilities like autism and other things like that. And I think that was really really cool to get that perspective from him, and also to learn a lot of things about him. Like he went to Bethel, and I didn't even know he went to Bethel at one point. I mean, he didn't graduate from Bethel, but he went to Bethel, which was really cool. But that was cool because he's like, now I have a teacher kind of in my bag that I can go and talk to, because he's now wants me to reach out to him if I ever have more questions. And he was really thorough in his answers, and it was just, I did all around, it was just a really cool experience. Um, and just like, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed not just like the assignments I've done and the things I've learned in mini arts class, but also specifically in like the content modules, because they're more specific to the things that I am interested in and want to do, which is social studies education ultimately. Um, and I think especially like when it comes to the interview assignment and the autobiography helped me think about like what my philosophy is, and that's something that should always be developing and strengthening. Is how I view like why should I be teaching, how should I be teaching. That stuff should always be a focus and shouldn't be this one thing that you're like never changing unnecessarily. Unless you have a good philosophy, then you probably shouldn't change it. But that's besides the point. And also the interview assignment itself, because he gave me a lot of really good advice about being willing to take criticism even from students, always like looking at what other teachers are doing. And he's kind of said something like, "Oh, teachers steal their ideas from each other," which I thought was kind of funny, but it's true. Why would you? If something's a good idea, you might as well use it if it helps other students and it will help your students. So just kind of that kind of advice that I got from him and the lessons that I got in the program, I think are going to be really helpful. And they already have been when I've done tutoring in my field experience at Centennial, kind of just like we do it in an AVID program, tutoring thing. And it's like I get to work with the students. It's about stuff I don't even know, but like math. I'm horrible at math, but working with them and the lessons that I learn in my classes for intro to education, I'm able to actually help them get to answers still, which is really cool. And yeah, like for someone who just like this semester was like, I want to teach and was exploring it, and now I'm solid and I want to become a teacher, I've really been thankful for that. So yeah, I think the programs are really helpful for me. It's been helpful for me in encouraging me for why I want to be a teacher and motivating me and giving me like a solid reason to pursue this as a career option and just preparing me for it. Yeah, I hope that kind of covered a lot of things. Thanks.